My name is Zarouhie Abdalian, and we're speaking at my studio in Oakland. So for the SECA Commission, I'm planning a sound installation in downtown Oakland that's consisting of 5 bells placed on rooftops near the intersection of 14th and Broadway, and the bells will ring once daily for the period of the installation. The primary audience for the work are people who are already at the site. One of the great things about sound is that it is social and you experience in space, and a lot of times you can't get away from it. If you hear bells, you have to walk a mile or two not to hear them. I'd actually thought of the project before proposing it, just in more general terms of thinking about bells activating various spaces within a city. But it seemed to really make sense near Ogawa Plaza because the architecture of that space already says it's a city center or a place for commuting or people coming together. So I moved to Oakland in 2010, and I was working on a project at that same time while I was moving in downtown Oakland. And at that time, I was impressed by how quiet things were after 5 or on a weekend. But the little bit activity there was at that time was people coming together to show support for the Grant family right ahead of the Meserly verdict, which was due out any day. So I saw it, right then, in first introduction as a place for gathering and activism. And then, had various relationships with the site over time, but was particularly inspired during the Occupy movement to see that site used for a place of gathering of a very broad community, coming together for meals or meetings and things like that. My experience of the site is very specific to that, although I think the project is broader. The title of the work is Occasional Music, and I think there are various reads of that. The work happens on occasion, so happens once a day at these randomly determined times. So you could think of that as the occasional aspect. But there's this history of occasional music. Occasional music, to designate some kind of state event or coronation or something along those lines. And this work, of course, is the exact opposite of that. So in that sense, the title's a little tongue-in-cheek. With this work, there's no visual element either, and that it is just the sound in downtown Oakland. But what I'm counting on is the viewer listening to the signal of the bell in this very specific and interpreting it there in the history of downtown Oakland at that site. And artwork's not activism, I don't think, but I do think pieces can propose ways of using space or relating to others in space that can be remembered in real situations.